want to say thank you for hitting play on this episode of Politics Not Included. I have just one thing to ask of you as you listen to this conversation. The goal of this show is to start bringing the humanity back to politics. And in order to do that, I need you to listen to this person's perspective with an open mind. This season, we're going to hear from candidates on both sides of the party aisle, as well as independent candidates. And I'm hoping that through these conversations, you'll get to know the people behind the campaigns and get to know the people that will appear on your ballot in August and again in November. And if you have something that you feel like you want to say that you wouldn't say if you were sitting in this room with us, I'm going to ask you to keep it out of the comments. We're here to genuinely get to understand somebody's journey and perspective. In order to accomplish the goal of this podcast, we need to go into this with an open mind and avoid attacking one another. Now, let's get this show started, and I'm excited to introduce you to the person that you'll get to know a little bit better today. Just one note before we get started with today's episode. All candidates have been invited to appear as a guest on Politics Not Included. On today's episode of Politics Not Included, I'm joined by Democratic candidate for governor in this 2026 election cycle, Marty Tuley. Marty, welcome to Politics Not Included.
Yeah, thank you so much, Morgan. I appreciate being out here and appreciate being invited.
Yeah, thank you.
Ton of fun.
Thank you for driving from Lawrence this morning, and I'm sure you have a lot of things going on.
No problem.
I appreciate you being here. And to get us started, I want to kind of break down your background and the experiences that have led you to run for governor.
Right.
But before we dive into that, you're running a statewide campaign.
Mm-hmm.
What excites you most about getting to travel the state and running for governor?
Well, traveling the state is like, not unusual or different for me because I grew up just northwest of Manhattan, actually about an hour and a half, and so small town. And if you grow up in rural Kansas, you drive a lot for school functions and school things and colleges or whatever. So I've been all over the state driving around. So that part is fine for me, and I enjoy it immensely. I do hear people say that run for office, they don't like the aspect of driving around Western Kansas, and and I get that if you haven't done it because the towns are far apart and there's a lot of driving to do. But if you grow up out here, it's just part of the culture of living in rural Kansas is that you learn to drive a lot of places and go a lot of things. So that part is awesome. I love going around the state. We have a beautiful state. The Flint Hills are awesome. It's one of my favorite parts of the country. So I don't have any problem with that at all. And what was the second part with the What'd you say?
What excites you for running for office?
Well, I'm just, we'll probably get into this more with some of the other questions, but I'm a natural leader, so it excites me to be a leader. It excites me to be involved in something where I'm going to be able to express my views and my ideas and try to get people motivated to get behind them. So that part is the exciting part for me.
Yeah, that's a very Midwest thing to travel.
Oh yeah, sure.
Spending a lot of time in the car. Coming from Virginia, that's not.
Yeah.
How can I spend the least amount of time in the car as possible?
Right.
In the Midwest, 10 hours, not bad.
Oh yeah, we drove. I grew up, high school football. We drove bus rides for 3 hours to play football teams on Friday nights. So it was nothing, right? So.
Yeah. So you're a road warrior. And this is your first time running for office.
Correct.
So what made you decide, maybe I should be leading at this level? You talked about leadership. And why governor specifically in running for office? Right.
Well, it's a great question, right? It's not you're not the first to ask that question, as you can imagine, right? So, I'll give you a quick story. Like 30 years ago or so, I was watching. I think it was 60 Minutes, and Kid Rock, our pop star, was on there, and he had just really gotten big, and fame was hitting him, And I remember the interviewer said, did you ever think it would be like this? And his answer was, every damn day. And I feel like my answer is kind of similar. People say, well, when did you start thinking about being governor? And I'm like, a long time ago. Really. I started thinking about this kind of a position, this kind of a role, doing something like this when I was probably 16 years old. It's been in my head for 40 years. And so I knew that eventually I was going to do something politically. I didn't know what it was going to be. I didn't know when it was going to be because I wanted to, the landscape and I wanted to be successful. So and I didn't know when I was 16 what party I would be affiliated with or where I would stand on all that. But I've known for a very long time that politics and specifically, running for a big office was going to be something I wanted to do. there was never the appeal for me to be a legislator, to be somebody who works on committees and bill. That kind of stuff just honestly just kind of bores me to tears. I've done board work and committee work in small environments, and it just seems like nothing ever gets done. I can't operate that way. I've always been self-employed from 23 years old to now. I've been self-employed. I've made all my own decisions. I've ran everything through. I don't want to be in a situation where I have to work on committees, and so some people, yes, for them, it's just not for me. So the role of being a governor has always felt very natural to me. So I look forward to trying to accomplish it. So
yeah, I appreciate that answer too, because I think sometimes, especially in the world of social media, you see that somebody just puts out there like, oh, I'm doing this thing, and that's the first time they're like soft launching, I'm doing this big thing, but in your mind, it's been something that's been on your radar and you've been thinking about and planning for. And so just because it's the first time somebody else is hearing about it doesn't mean that you don't have a plan.
Yeah, no, far from it. One of my good friends, she's moved to the East Coast, and I texted her when all this started about a year and a half ago, goes, hey, I'm going to go for this. And she said, gosh, I can remember you 25 years talking about doing something like this. So it's been something I've been talking about and thinking about for a long time.
Mm-hmm. So what about now feels like the right time then for you?
So I've been a Republican most of my life. Grew up in small town, rural Kansas. Kansas is largely Republican, especially rural Kansas. And so when you're young, you don't really know yet. You don't have the experiences to make those decisions yet. You go with what your parents are, that kind of thing. So I've been a Republican most of my life, and I didn't really have any trouble with it, honestly, the party itself, until really the Trump phenomenon. And the Trump and the MAGA movement really just turned me. I just couldn't get on board with that platform any longer. And so I began to be more democratic in my views and platform views. But I didn't actually switch parties till just about a year and a half ago when I decided to do this, because I technically had to switch parties in order to run as a Democrat. But I align more closely with the Democratic platform these days, with some big exceptions. So I went that route. Morgan, remind me, where were we going? What was the initial question there?
What's the timing? So why?
Oh, yeah. So when I started looking at the climate, about 10 years ago, Morgan, is when this kind of really got serious. I had a good friend who was a counselor, and I started talking to her about it, and I was like, I think I'm going to do this. And she was like, she really encouraged me. She said, look, you got the right voice, you got the right look. You just, we just need to, nail down your concepts and your ideas. And I think this is something you could really pursue. And then 5 years ago, we got even a little more serious. And then a year and a half ago, we got like all in serious. And when I looked at the climate as we got closer and closer, I felt like in the Democratic Party in particular in Kansas, there just wasn't anybody that looked like they could get this deal done. And I still don't think that's the case, other than myself, obviously, President Cummings excluded. And so I felt like there was an opportunity in the Democratic Party to do something very different that the Democratic Party wasn't doing in Kansas, to be a different kind of candidate that the Democratic Party in Kansas was not doing. And so it just seemed like the right time. In some respects, it's kind of not the right time, because we've never had a three-term Dem in the state of Kansas before. So this has never been done. Historically, history is against me. I mean, we've never done this before in the state of Kansas. So it will take something special, I think, to win a third term. And that's kind of what also moved me. I was like, okay, well, this is the time to do this, because it is going to take something special to do this, because politics has a way of kind of naturally swinging. Mm-hmm. And after two terms of a Dem, it's pretty natural to have a Republican, just because sometimes, not even because it's necessarily the right person. It just... Mm-hmm. Politics swings. It's natural. So it seemed right. The timing seemed right for sure. I was like, if we're going to do this, right now is the time we can do it. I feel like no offense to Cindy and Ethan, they're great people, but I feel like the candidates on the Democratic Party side were weak in terms of being able to get the state. Because as a Democrat in the state of Kansas, you have to win the moderate Republican and independent vote to win the big chair. And I didn't feel like Cindy or Ethan, either one had a chance to do that. And so I felt like, okay, this is something I can do, because I am from rural Kansas, and I can still go to Coffeyville, Kansas, and talk hay and farming and wheat and cows, and I have an inside. I have some inside, knowledge that Cindy and Ethan, quite frankly, just don't have.
And I saw an interview where you said you called yourself the middle, and we'll come back to that, and that is your approach in a minute. But before we move on, I want to talk a little bit more about your career and how running for office fits into that. Mm-hmm. Because you've mentioned you're a business owner and a personal trainer. Mm-hmm. I'd like to hear a little bit more about that. And then also, how does running for governor fit into your career?
Yeah. Well, it's actually fit just fine, because one of the things that I've done from the very get-go was I wanted to do this without quitting my job. And I was advised early on that I could not do that without quitting my job, that I needed to quit my job, needed to fully fund this campaign, spend the next year and a half doing it just full throttle, nothing but campaign. And I just never felt good about it from the get-go. When I started this venture a year and a half ago, we put together the whole team. Like I had a campaign manager, I had a marketing guy. I mean, we had 10 people. I mean, that were all going to serve roles, and I was going to fund them, that kind of thing. I had set aside a certain amount of money that I was going to put into the campaign to launch everything, and then it became clear to me that the campaign was going to be like almost exclusively about raising money and not campaigning. And so about 6 months into it, before I actually announced that I was running in June, I just pulled the plug on all of it. I said, hey, I'm not going to invest any money. I'm not doing it. And I don't want to staff. I've got like about 10 good volunteers right now, kind of an advisory board that I meet with weekly, and we chat about everything. But I said, I want boots on the ground. I want to do this the old-fashioned way, and let the cards just kind of play let the cards just kind of settle where they will. Thank you. Yeah. So I never wanted to run a traditional campaign anyway. After I kind of went down that road initially, so it has fit into my life fine because I've made it fit. So I'm just not going to quit working, so it's going to be part of it. And I want that to be part of my pitch too. That we can get into this a little bit later too. But Jacksonian democracy. That's kind of something that I believe strongly in. The common man should be able to run for office. It shouldn't be about money. It shouldn't be about necessarily your education level. The common man should be able to run for office, and he shouldn't be discouraged by the fact that he didn't go to Ivy League schools, or he doesn't have $1 million in his bank. I mean, that just seems crazy to me. So I really wanted to pursue it from that angle. So I'm making it fit is the short answer to your question. So yeah,
and I do have a question about this later, but since you've already brought it up, we'll go ahead and touch on it now. That there are people that have the opinion that you have to have prior legislative experience or a certain amount of money in your campaign account to be considered a viable candidate. And you've touched on that a little bit, but how have you gone about battling that conception and getting off the ground? I mean, it's not a small feat.
For sure. We have a president right now that's a billionaire. I mean, we've never had that before, right? I mean, so it's money definitely is running politics, and we'll get into this more too, but it's greasy. I mean, I have found it to be very greasy since I've been in. I have not been thrilled with what I've experienced so far with regards to just the political aspect of all of it. There was some of it that I was naive about, some of it I probably expected, some of it I just didn't think would quite be that way. Morgan, go back. Sorry, where was the original question there?
How do you navigate the perception of having to have a certain amount of money or
so
legislative experience?
So I want to use it as my advantage, real honestly. I mean, when I'm out and about and doing all the small towns, which I'm doing a ton of, and I love, it's my favorite thing in the whole world to do is, I want that to be one of my sticks. I mean, that's one of my, that's one of my calling cards is, hey, I am doing this like, the old-fashioned way. I mean, and I want people to be more concerned with, my concepts and my ideas than the fact that I'm running blast emails or blast texts or running a phone center or calling your house. I don't want to do any of that kind of shit, honestly. I mean, I just feel like that's like the worst part of politics is when your phone lights up every day with text messages for, $3 here and $3 there, and your phone's ringing at night. I'm just like, oh my God. I mean, we can do better than that, I feel like, I would love to see some fundraising reform in politics, some major fundraising reform, because it's out of control. I mean, it's simply out of control.
And you touched on this a little bit, with the other candidates, but running for office is a major commitment. I mean, both financially, whether or not you're raising a lot of money, but both from your own pocket, you're traveling the state, as well as a huge time commitment. So how did you decide to throw your name in the hat versus supporting another candidate? Well, we
touched on this a little bit earlier, but there was another candidate I felt like I wanted to be a part of. And again, this sounds a little bit arrogant, but it's absolutely true. I have a hard time being a second behind person. It's not a role I'm very comfortable in. I've done some football coaching in the last 15 years as an assistant on some football programs and helped out with some programs. And I struggle with being silent in situations like that. I have a natural instinct and desire to always kind of want to be the guy out front and leading and taking control, which can be problematic in some respects, right? So there was nobody, and again, Ethan and Cindy, fine people, but neither one of them have a platform or a campaign that makes me go, oh God, I've got to be a part of that deal. You know, it just isn't there. So that was
Yeah, so you felt like you have a unique stance.
For sure.
That is worth putting yourself through. I mean, you're putting yourself in the ring, quite literally.
For sure, yeah.
In terms of, so I've listened to different interviews and stuff that you've done in the past, and in one, you called yourself the third wheel to the other two Democratic candidates. In running for governor as an outsider or the third wheel in your terms can come with skepticism from the public as well as, in other situations too.
Right.
But what's been the hardest perception for you to overcome this far in running for governor as the third wheel?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's the biggest problem has just been overcoming this mindset we've developed now, this culture that goes along with politics now, that you do have to have a lot of money, that you do have to have legislative experience, that you do have to have gone to an Ivy League school. I mean, I think I think the public is now conditioned to think that has to be the next politician that they vote for. And if you aren't that, then maybe you can't be a politician, which, again, going back to that Jacksonian democracy kind of concept, I mean, I feel like that's just crazy. I feel like the common man should be able to run for office. He should be able to run for office, and he should be able to run for governor without raising $5 million effing dollars, which is what I was told a year and a half ago I would have to raise. I mean, that just seems insane to me. Number one, that negates 99.9% of the population of Kansas from running for governor, because most people can't do that. They have no concept of how to even accomplish that. And most people don't want to do it. They don't want to go out and raise $5 million to run for governor, so me included. So it's greasy, it's sticky, but I'm muddling my way through it so far. So I'm having a ton of fun. So
yeah, that's an important part.
It is, yeah.
To keep you going. And if you zoom out and think of it from a big picture, it can be kind of overwhelming.
It is. I'll tell you a quick story, Morgan. I was last July. I did my very first event where I went down to Parsons, Kansas, to meet with the I think it was Montgomery County. Or no, Labette, God, they would kill me for that. Labette County Democratic Party, and it was my first time, and I was in my car and I was alone, and I just finished my day, and so I had to get in my car at 3:00 and drive 3 hours, and I was driving down, and it was it was dark, and I was thinking to myself as I was driving, God, Marty, is this really what you want to do? Or you want to get in your car like 2 or 3 days a week and drive 3 hours every night to go meet, and I'm thinking, oh man, do I really want to do this, right? And so I get there and pull in. Anyway, long story short, group of about 50 people, and they were just fantastic, and I had so much fun. And I ended up spending like 2 hours talking with them, and I was like, so then on the return home trip, I was like, oh yeah, I can absolutely do this. This is going to be a ton of fun. And so away I went. So
yeah, that's interesting. I mean, you think of that with anything in your life. There's almost a point where you could talk yourself out of doing something if you get too far in your head versus just like, I'm going to go and do this experience and see how it goes. Yeah,
I've always been somebody who has not had trouble making those kind of jumps, probably maybe to my detriment at times, right? So I've always been somebody that's kind of swung for the rafters, everything I've done. I don't have it's hard for me just to do something without trying to be the very best at it. It's very natural to me for me to want to do that. So, so I'm always swinging, even sometimes, like I say, to my detriment. So
yeah, you gotta go for it. Just a really quick interruption from the conversation that I hope you're enjoying. If you want to hear more of these conversations in the future, please consider hitting the follow or subscribe button in whatever platform you are listening or watching this episode. Just that one click of the button really helps us expand and grow the show. Thank you. And as you mentioned earlier, you've positioned yourself as someone as being the middle. You were a Republican, you're now a Democrat, and you've explicitly said, I'm the middle person here. So in terms of, in practice, of bringing together the Kansas Legislature, which has people sprinkled throughout the spectrum, including on both far ends, in practice for you, what does it look like to bring people together to get stuff done in the legislature?
Well, I mean, I don't think it looks any different than really anything I've ever really done. I mean, I've spent my whole life, building small companies. 40 years of loans and commercial loans and leases and hiring staff and training staff and building policy, building procedures, writing manuals, blah blah blah. I've spent my whole life working with people in that capacity, and so I don't see it any different with the legislature. I mean, every opportunity comes with different challenges, of course, and the supermajority legislature in Kansas is very challenging if you're going to be a Democrat, especially, right? So, but one of the big advantages I have over Cindy and Ethan, they would, of course, disagree, but is that by being where I'm at in terms of, into the middle, far right on the Democratic side, far left on the Republican side, I feel like it gives me a better chance of having a voice with the supermajority in Kansas and getting them, because I can, again, most of the supermajority of Kansas, most of those guys are all farmers, small town people that are occupiers. They're all people that I grew up with and know intimately, and I feel like I'll be able to have a voice with those people that a typical, I hate to say typical, but a traditional typical Democrat is going to really struggle with. It's an obstacle, I think, that Cindy and Ethan are going to really struggle to have any kind of impact with the supermajority in Kansas if they can win the election. So,
do you have thoughts on? I mean, as the leader of Kansas, that may be strong wording, but the governor of Kansas.
For sure, right? Yeah. I think it is a leadership role, for sure. It's not a manager's role. I mean, there's no doubt about that. I mean, that's one of the things I think I differ greatly, again, with Cindy and Ethan on, is that I don't see the government as the governor's job as a management job. It's a leadership job. It is setting new goals, new ideas, new concepts. It's throwing big shit out there and seeing what you can get to stick and seeing what you get people to get behind and motivate to do. So.
And being in that role, though, again, you're dealing with people on both sides and the public, the rest of the population of the state of Kansas. Sure. How do you go about if you come across a situation where the public opinion or the legislature's opinion doesn't align with your own personal opinion? Right. Do you move forward with, how do you move forward handling your own opinions versus what most people would like to see happen? Right.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of horse trading that goes on in politics, and we'd love, I would love to roll into Topeka someday as the governor and lay out my platform and just, get everything I want. But that's not going to happen. I mean, I'm not an idiot. I understand how politics works. I mean, I'm under no illusion I'm going to be able to get all my 10 core concepts passed. I'm going to hope to get, maybe 20% of them passed to some degree, or maybe 30%, maybe. I don't know. Of course, I'm going to try to do, my goal would be to get everything, but it's just not realistic, right? So there's horse trading that has to go on. And I truly believe in politics that both sides have to win. I mean, I don't want a Kansas run only by Democrats, even though I align with the Democratic Party. Any more than I want the state run completely by Republicans. The state runs the best when we are literally right in the middle with our decision making. I mean, that's when the state runs the best. That's when most people are happy. And I think one of your questions that you're going to get into is, the primary and voting. I think it was one of the last questions I saw on your list. But I think that's a key issue in an election like this. I think your question was asking me about encouraging people to vote in the primary. The primary is critical because what's going on right now in our state and really the country is that the primary drives out the far left. Brings in the far left and it brings in the far right. Those are the people that primarily vote in the primary. Mm-hmm. So then we end up with a candidate that doesn't really address the middle at all. And by the time you get to the general, then you're looking at candidates, you're like, oh God, where's the middle? Well, you should have voted in the primary if you wanted somebody in the middle, because that is where we're at with politics. I think it's something we definitely have to work on. So
I do think that gets lost. And if you look at voter turnout in the primary versus the general election any year, it's always much lower, when you can make an argument, especially within your own party, that's the time to make the decision.
Right.
Because that's when you have a choice within your own party.
Right.
And I think that's
because in the general you're only going to have one choice, and this kind of goes to the younger voter too. That 18 to 29 group is the smallest turnout in the state of Kansas. It's the smallest turnout in the country. I mean that's but that group is the group that is affected the most by politics. I mean, and they don't vote because they're busy. They're in college. They're having families. They're starting careers. And I get it. I've been there too. But it would be awesome to get that group more interested and more voting, because they have the most to lose, quite honestly. But we'll see how that goes too.
Yeah. I've said this in any situation I can, different interviews, other places too, that the younger you are, the longer the effects impact you. So showing up to vote in both the general and the primary are really important.
Absolutely. And I was guilty of it myself too when I was a young person, because I was self-employed and I was busy and I had lots of more other things I was focused on, so.
Yeah, I mean, me too.
It happens. It's kind of natural, right? I mean,
it comes with age. Like, the more aware of it you become.
I mean, there's a reason why the biggest voting group is 65 plus, and it's primarily because most of them have time on their hands to do it.
Yeah.
When you hit 65, a lot of people are retired, and you have time to be involved in politics. You have time to go vote, and so,
Yeah, and so to kind of wrap up a little bit of the leadership side of this. If somebody listening to this does not know who you are, and you were asked the question of what kind of leader is Marty Tuley, how would you answer that question?
I would say that I'm an inspiring leader. I'm somebody, I don't want to sound arrogant, but I am somebody that when you get in a room with, you're going to want to be on my team. If we're picking sides and it's a dodgeball game and I'm the captain, you're going to want to be on my side of the game. I mean, it's just, I've always had that kind of allure with people. It's helped me with being an entrepreneur, of course, and being a self-employed businessman. But it's real. I mean, I don't want, like I say, I don't want to sound arrogant, but it is real. And I want to use that to my advantage and to the state's advantage. I want to get people fired up and excited about new ideas and concepts, which honestly, I think that's the one part of Kansas politics that we have not had in a very long time. Most of the governors in the last 40 years have come from our legislature. Most of them are basically just managers. And what we've done in the state of Kansas over the last 40 years, and you can look at all the numbers to see this, is that we've basically managed decline in the state. I mean, the state has just continued to wither on the vine in much the same way the small communities are withering on the vine. And we're going to have to at some point take some bigger, bold initiatives in the state to change the course of where this state is headed.
And a slight follow-up to that, if you were elected as governor, what would you like the tone or culture of your administration to feel like? Excitement.
I mean, I think that's, from my perspective, look as a voter the last 20 years. I mean, has there been a politician in Kansas that I've been like, hell yeah, that sounds cool. Let's go do that shit, right? It's like, let's go do some new stuff. Let's challenge ourselves. Let's push ourselves. I mean, not to my knowledge, we've had a governor like that. I mean, that's what I would love to be seen as somebody that's going to create that kind of energy in an environment.
And running for office, so we're going to shift gears to your family and a little bit more of your personal life. But running for office, we talked about, it's a huge commitment, a lot of travel, time away, financial commitment for yourself. So can you tell us a little bit about your family and how your family runs or fits into running for governor?
Yeah. I probably didn't do it in a traditional manner. Like, I think a lot of people think, well, you set the whole family down at dinner one night and said, hey, team, this is what I want to do. What does everybody think? I really didn't do that at all. I made the decision and then just kind of told the family, hey, this is what I'm doing. And I've got kids that are similar to me, very motivated young people. My wife's a very motivated person who's been very successful in lots of different ventures that she's done. And everybody was like, yeah, Dad, let's go for it. I mean, you should do this. You've been talking about it for 20 years. I mean, go do it. And so I didn't have to have that conversation of like, I'm going to be gone in the evening sometimes. And now I've got two kids that are very involved in sports. I've got a son who plays college football, a daughter that's high school volleyball, going to play college volleyball. I love sports. It's been a big part of my family my entire life. I've made a commitment when I did this. I was like, I'm not going to miss sports stuff. And I haven't completely done that. I have missed a few things, but as a general rule, I'm not going to miss my kids' sports stuff because it's just too important to me. I don't want that kind of a sacrifice to have to be part of politics either. I don't feel like that should have to be there either. So
yeah. So they were supportive.
Yeah. So they've been on board. They've been on board from the get-go. I've had no pushback at all from either one of them. They've been great. My daughter, my son has accompanied me on a couple things, but as a general rule, if I can take somebody from my team with me when I'm on the road, I like to take my daughter because she's 15 and she's personable and she's cute and the people just love her wherever we go, and she's very talkative, and so she's been my main wingman on the road when I've been out and about. So
yeah, I bet that's a cool experience.
Yeah, she's really enjoyed it. Yeah,
yeah, it's a unique,
and for me too, right? So I get to enjoy it as well. So
yeah, unique experience for sure. Do you feel like you've mentioned missing out on some of the sports games, even though you really try not to, but do you feel like you've had to say no to things personally in order to run for governor in this stint? Like, what do you feel like you're giving up in order to
run for governor? I don't feel like I've had to give it up much, I guess, just mainly because I guess the this endeavor has filled the gap that I kind of left, right? So I've always been somebody who's had a lot of passion projects on the side. Mm-hmm. So like I've been an author, I've written a couple books, I've written for the periodic, when magazines were a thing, I used to write for the magazines. I wrote a movie script that I tried to sell. I've got a children's book series that I've been trying to sell for years. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've always had a lot of passion projects on the side. Well, those are gone. My passion project now is running for office. Yeah. And so it's like, I did give up some things, but at the same time, I filled it with basically the same kind of what I'm giving away, I kind of got back in spades, right? So politics and doing this has now become my passion project, so.
Yeah, do you feel like from a mental side of this, that you're putting this effort forward, you're doing it for months, you mentioned considering running for governor for a long time, mm-hmm. so it's not just something you've done on a whim, mm-hmm. and you're committing time to it. How do you handle, like you get a decision overnight, essentially, of whether or not you're moving on or not. You've devoted all of this time to it. So how do you handle that it's a yes or no outcome?
Right.
In all of the time that you've put into it as a part of it, but you have to go for it. Like, how do you balance I'm committing a lot of time to this and it's uncertain with the outcome?
Yeah, for sure. Gosh, I don't think about it, Morgan, to be honest with you. It's not something that's in my mind. Partly because, I don't fail a lot, really. I mean, I have, but in a way, I've had some big failures. I've lost a business. I've had to file personal bankruptcy over the business. I've had some big failures, but I guess those things never I was never thinking, gosh, what will I do if I have to file bankruptcy? I mean, that was never in my mind. I mean, when it happened, I had to deal with it, but I was never preparing for that. And the same way with this, I mean, I'm not preparing for losing. I'm not thinking about that. If it happens, and honestly, it likely will, because I'm a long shot. I get that, but I don't think about in that respect. I mean, if it happens, it happens, and I'll move on to my next passion project, whatever that might be, and maybe it'll be something else in politics. I don't know, but right now, I don't think of it that way.
Yeah, I'm always just curious of people's perspective on that, especially if you think about running for governor
mm-hmm.
or politics in general.
Mm-hmm.
You're going for something and you're
mm-hmm.
going for it publicly.
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of people, that's a hard thing to wrap your head around, of the failure behind it.
Right.
And personally, I'm always interested in what people's philosophies are in that regard, because it's so easy to get wrapped up in, I just spent 2 hours doing this. It probably won't matter, but you can't have that mindset to be successful in a lot of things in life. Yeah,
so. for sure. No, like I say, you just got to keep swinging, right? So keep swinging for those rafters. So
yeah, you got to pick yourself up and keep going.
Yeah. It's largely a game of attrition. So much of life is a game of attrition. Mm-hmm. I've told my kids this for years, with sports. I mean, just hang in there, just hang in there. Most kids will drop out. Most kids will burn out. Most kids won't make, you just got to hang in there. And it's so true of so many things in life, in business too. I mean, just hang in there, man. Sometimes you just got to hang. Yeah. Even if it's by a thread, just keep hanging, because people will drop out, things will go on, so.
Yeah, that's also a common thing that I hear people say, listening to successful people in other podcasts and just in general conversations, that the people that tend to rise, or they'll admit themselves, I'm not great, I'm really great at just persisting, I'm an average, but I show up every day and I am not giving up, and eventually other people will
I think it's so true
so.
of so many things. I think when we think about singers, pop singers and rock bands, those stories, we hear those stories all the time. They grind and they grind and they grind. Well, the other band member, somebody gets pregnant, somebody gets married, the band just, the band goes away. Things happen as life goes on. And if you could just maintain that grind to the finish line, you might be that group or that team or that person, so.
Just keep going.
Yeah.
And as somebody that doesn't have a political background, you're running for governor. Mm-hmm. That comes with some instant spotlight. Mm-hmm. People now see your name places and mm-hmm. are probably going to start recognizing you.
Mm-hmm.
So
yes, it happens already.
Have you experienced that shift, and what has that been like for you in terms of going places and people may recognize you now?
Mm-hmm. I have been recognized, and that's cool. People approach me in the grocery store and ask me about it, and that's cool. I like talking. I see a lot of people that recognize me that don't approach me, which is probably more normal, right? They're I've seen that guy, but I'm not going to talk to him, right? But within my personal circle, people I know, friends and clients and coworkers, anybody's known me. I don't think anybody has been surprised. Nobody's been like, "Holy shit, Marty, what are you doing?" Nobody has had. I haven't had that experience. Yeah. I've only just had encouragement from people I know, so I haven't had to navigate, that aspect of things. So.
Mm-hmm. And then shifting to that kind of context online, so you're very active on social media. I've seen you have videos that you post.
Yeah, we do one a day, if not two. We try to do, so.
And with that comes, you're entering a space, I think it's different in person. People typically won't just come up to you and say horrible things to you.
They will online.
Some people will, but that is very rare.
No, it's very rare.
Online, you're opening yourself up. It's normal.
It's the opposite, right? It's the opposite.
So have you experienced that as an outcome on social media?
Sure.
And how do you handle and navigate that?
Sure. Well, social media was super important to me from the get-go. I knew that was going to have to be a big part of the campaign because again, I'm not a traditional politician. I wasn't going to do the email blast, wasn't going to do the phone call centers, I wasn't going to do that shit. So I knew social media was going to play a pivotal role if I was going to make this happen. So the short answer to your question is I ignore it for the most part, to be honest with you. I mean, I only look at it like ever so often, and usually because I've got an individual that's running the social media, and she's out in Denver, and she'll like text me or something. Hey, there is a comment that I think you ought to look at. Maybe you ought to go say something about. And occasionally she'll do that, and then I will. But as a general rule, I mean, I don't want to read that stuff because it's not going to do me any good, and it's not going to make me feel any better. And then or you get in the position where you want to defend yourself, so you start some conversation that will never end, right? Because you'll never convince them. So I've just avoided going there at all. I put my stuff out there. I want everybody to see it. I want them to have opinions about it. I love the fact that we've had some stuff that's done pretty well on social media, and it is growing pretty well right now. But I'm not going to spend any time reading it.
Yeah, it's interesting on social media that the conversation can continue to go on forever. Like online, there really seems to be a lack of connection behind it. Like if you're in person having a conversation.
Oh, you can be a hero online, boy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's easy to do. Easy to say bad things, easy to be insulting, easy to be, I get it. I mean, I understand why that is, so.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, though, it is much like you just said. It's you go to it's the opposite of what you experience at the grocery store. At the grocery store, people come and generally it's always been good. Hey, I see what you're doing. Good luck, blah blah blah. But online, it's the opposite. It's probably 90 the bad way and 10 the good way. So I get that.
But yeah, you do have to use social media because it is what everybody is using.
Absolutely.
Especially if you're trying. I mean, even older generations,
yeah, no
Facebook
doubt.
is really popular. It's
Facebook and TikTok really are the two big ones. I mean, we do a little bit of Instagram too, but only because really, Facebook is that 65 plus group, and TikTok is roughly 45 and younger. And so those are the two groups we hit the most. And TikTok is by far the most active right now of all the social media. So yeah, we do a lot of it. And you want to put stuff out there that you don't want to be just milk toast. You want to put your hardcore ideas and you want to be straightforward with it because you want to get activity, and you want to get your video shared and that kind of thing. You don't want to lie, of course. You're not. But at the same time, it doesn't do you any good just to be a melancholy politician that doesn't really ever say anything that anybody. There's nothing worse, right, than the politicians that answer questions that never answer, right? It's just like, what did he say? He spent 3 minutes talking and didn't say a damn thing, right? It's like I hate that kind of stuff, right? Let's get to it, right? So
yeah, commit to what it is that you believe. But you could also make an argument though that have you experienced as somebody that's in the middle and you have shared stances? I know you said you align more with the Democratic Party, but you also align with some of the Republican views. Online, I'm thinking of as a perspective of a teacher, you hear from the extremes, you don't hear from the average. It's really hard to get the average to engage on surveys and stuff.
Sure.
So do you feel like that's a difficult challenge because you aren't so far extreme one way to get traction.
Right.
Online.
I think the average is in there for sure. I mean, I think like you just said though, they just don't participate in the process, but they're watching them. I mean, they're seeing it. They're talking about it, amongst their friends. They're just not online, typing necessarily it in. So I think it's there with the social media, with the average people. I think there's plenty of people out there that look. I mean, I do. You do probably too.
Yeah, I guess instead of you just watch it, but you don't like it or share it.
Right. I
see it.
Probably much like you, I look at social media every day in some respect, and I don't think I've ever in my life ever commented on anything I've ever seen on social media. Yeah, I don't think I've ever liked anything.
Really...
I don't think I've ever written anything. I enjoy seeing people's opinions, but I just don't care enough, I guess, to put anything down on it. I guess I also know at the end of the day, it's meaningless to do it. It's just my blab doesn't mean it's not gonna influence anybody out there. So not why waste my time, kind of thing. So.
Yeah, if it's a comment, it's somebody that I'm really proud of, and oftentimes it's like, oh, I'm gonna text them because it's more personal.
Right.
Or like, liking something's a little bit different than putting a comment in your opinion on something. And to kind of shift gears a little bit, you have to have a lieutenant governor in Kansas to file. How have you been going about?
Hate that rule, by the way.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like, from a strategic standpoint, it's really at the wrong time. You have to file on June 1, you have to have a running mate. But there are like all kinds of like House races going on, Senate races going on, where there are a lot of people vying for those roles. And so I think there's like 12 people going after Marshall's Senate seat. There's a bunch, right? Well, only one's going to win it, right? So there's going to be 11 Democrats come August that could potentially be like good running mates that you can't talk to because they're in a race right now, And so I think that, I'd love to see that changed. That's a side note, but we are in the thick of that process right now. And honestly, it might be the kiss of death for me. Maybe we have some people we're talking to. And I have some ideas of people I think I would like, but lieutenant governor is a tough sell because, it's hard enough to get somebody to run for office, period. But lieutenant governor is, why would somebody give up a provost job at KU or Wichita State or wherever, right, to run for lieutenant governor? You have to have some ambition maybe for future politics, or you have to have some ambition in terms of is this something you're really passionate about and you want to see change? But it's a tough sell. Like I said, I feel confident we're going to find somebody that we like and can work with. But we're right in the middle of that right now for sure. I would hate to have that be the way that you end a campaign for sure. That you just can't find somebody that would fit that role. But that's one of our big battles right now for sure.
Yeah, I find that to be an interesting. I appreciate you talking about that because, and you mentioned it could be the kiss of death, that you hear people say there's candidates that are running, but they may not make it past the filing because they don't have a lieutenant governor.
Right.
But you never really think about, finding that right person that's willing to attach themselves to you and then run for office in a way that's not governor, and there's a little bit of being overshadowed in that. So how do you find that person?
Right. To get essentially you're asking somebody to give a career up. Now in the summertime, not so much. That's kind of one of the selling points. You can, in the summertime, lieutenant governor is really not going to do that much. Because the campaign is still going to largely just be 95% me. But come August, if you were to win the primary, well then things have to step up for everybody. But lieutenant governors don't. They don't carry a lot of weight from a voting perspective in the state of Kansas. I don't know if they carry any weight, to be honest with you. They're just, you don't want somebody that's going to hurt you because of you got some wacko, but you're not going to find anybody that's necessarily going to change anybody's mind over another candidate, in my opinion. But it's got to be done. Got to find somebody, so.
Yeah. And then the question that I like to finish up with before we move into the final 3 questions that I ask everybody, or will, this season, is, and I like finishing with this question because you're doing something that very few people get to experience. Running for office, not many people do, especially running for something like governor.
Right.
And it's so easy as a public to look at somebody running for office and just make an opinion off of social media or just in passing, when really as a person, you have very many different things. You're a business owner, you're an entrepreneur, you mentioned you're a writer, you have all these passion projects, you're not just one thing.
Right.
So is there anything that you feel like the public misunderstands about people that run for office or elected officials?
Yeah, I would say in general that the public probably has it right. Politicians, majority of politicians are kind of what we all kind of think. I don't mean that to be bad, but you kind of know what I mean in terms of we have a perception of what we think of when we think of politics and people that run for office, right? And I think that's largely true, unfortunately, and disappointingly too. When I got in this deal a year and a half ago officially, in June we filed a treasurer, which made it kind of official, and that's when I started getting some publicity. I expected, maybe I should not have, but I expected the Democratic Party to reach out to me. I thought they would reach out and say, hey, we saw you file a treasure. We're excited to see people involved. We want people involved. I thought I'd get some kind of a feel good, pump me up kind of call. I didn't expect them to say, hey, we're behind you 100%, blah blah blah. But I expected something, and I've got nothing. I've not had one call from the Democratic Party in Kansas since I started this deal. Not one. Not, thanks for running. Nothing. I mean, crickets.
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of Kansans will probably hear that and go, well, I'm not surprised. I mean, that is politics, right? I mean, and I think the Democratic Party in particular in Kansas, this sounds bad because, I'm running as a Democrat, but the party has got a lot of issues right now, the Democratic Party. I feel like the party is really working against itself. I mean, we have such an unfavorable rating nationally right now. It's like 60%. People believe the Democratic Party is failing. And we're largely failing because we are following that blueprint, textbook, political fiasco. We've got two career politicians from Johnson County running for governor in the state of Kansas, which I find just to be completely absurd to a certain degree. Because Johnson County, you're not from Kansas, but
yeah.
You maybe don't quite understand this. But where I'm from, Johnson County is almost not considered part of the state. I mean, they're an outlier. I mean, they're not. There is nothing in Johnson County is a fine county. I go there a lot. It's a great place to be. Not bagging on Johnson County, but there is nothing about Johnson County that is similar to the other 100 counties out west. I mean, there's nothing. I mean, so I find it really hard to believe that the Democratic Party has decided that a career politician from Johnson County, born and raised there, and Cindy in her case, not even born and raised there, born and raised in Missouri. I mean, I find it hard to believe that they think that that's the candidate that can win the general election in Kansas. That's the candidate. Those are the kind of candidates that can win the moderate Republican vote, the independent vote, which is what's going to require. So I think, back to your question, I don't think people would be surprised at politics, unfortunately. I wish they were. I mean, I feel like I am really an anomaly, honestly. I mean, I don't know of anybody like myself in the last 30 years that's would kind of have a background similar to mine that wasn't involved in politics. And like I said, the last 40 years, the majority of the governors have been legislators. I mean, people have been career politicians. So I'm absolutely unique in that respect. I'm hoping that can be a huge advantage for me down the road, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, you could assume that in order to run for office and put yourself through that public scrutiny, that you have to have a certain personality in order to be able to even handle that.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, I would not want to run.
No, I get it, man. I totally understand why people would want to be a part of that, right? I mean, it's no fun when people say bad things about you on the internet. It's no fun at all, right? I get that.
Not great. But just like since you brought this up, I am kind of curious that you have the rural background and have that part of the state. Do you feel like you would be able to connect with Johnson County too, in terms of like being the governor and representing all parts of the state?
Well, I mean, I absolutely do. I mean, the issues are different for Johnson County than they are for Republic County, where I grew up. But I absolutely do. I mean, but they are. That is one county of 105, and so it's like, I mean, I don't feel like Johnson County should be dictating our politics in the state, even though it has the most registered Democratic voters in the state. I get that. That's not a good argument for Republic County. That's not a good argument for Riley County. That's not a good argument for any county out west. I mean, that's not an argument that anybody's going to listen to. I mean, that they have the most, because people in rural Kansas are going to look at that and say, what in the hell does a Johnson County person have in common with me? I mean, what could they possibly understand about, growing up in a county where there's 6,000 people, I mean, in the whole county, in one high school. I mean, what could they, so, I don't know. Did we answer the question? Was that
yeah.
Did we? Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And, I do have a follow-up in terms of your own experience in running for office. Has there been anything, and you kind of mentioned the Democratic Party, anything that has surprised you about running for office that you didn't see coming? Yeah,
it would be that. It would be what I just told you. I mean, I thought, like I said, I didn't think the party would be like jumping up and down excited for somebody like me to be running. But I did think I would get like some level of like reach out. I mean,
welcome. Here's your
yeah. I mean, one of the very first things that happened to me, Morgan, was the Kansas Democratic Party put on a big event in Hays, Kansas, Ellis County, which is out west even from here, right? I was actually born in Hays. My parents went to Fort Hays State University, and then I grew up an hour and a half, basically northeast of Hays. So I was contacted by the Ellis County chair and invited to the event, and I accepted. And long story short, at the end of the day, they wouldn't let me go. The Democratic Party wouldn't let me go, and they would not let me be part of the process. And I never fully got a good answer as to why. But the chair the week before axed me from being part of it. And again, this goes to what I was just telling you. I couldn't understand. I thought to myself, this is the craziest thing I've ever heard. You're inviting the two Johnson County candidates to Hays, to rural Kansas, and you're excluding the guy that was born there and raised in rural Kansas. I mean, you're not trying to win this election very damn hard, in my opinion, because that just seems like completely contrary to what the Democratic Party should have been doing, right? In terms of letting me participate in that event. So that's, again, back to that similar, that's been my biggest surprise, is that I just thought the Democratic Party. Now, I mean, again, I'm not bagging on the Democratic Party. I bet the Republican Party is probably not much different in that respect. I'm sure they have their favorites too that they lean on, but anyway, it's been a surprise to me. So
yeah, that's one thing that I don't know that I've really understood, and I wonder if most of the people in the public may not understand either. That you have the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, and there's people that have some level of control over the candidates, and there's input coming from those places, but it kind of seems like it's like a Wizard of Oz type of like the man behind the mat. Like
so I've got an event. I've got to tell you, a campaign event organizer as part of my group, and so we send out emails to all the counties, and all the county parties, and I go speak to these county parties. That's the big deal, right? Johnson County, Wyandotte County, Douglas County, nothing. I mean, they won't return our emails, won't return our calls. I've never been able to do any speaking and I live in Douglas County, and Johnson County is just right down the road. And that again goes to what I've been kind of surprised about, just that not only have I been excluded from events, but it's been purposeful. I mean, it's been like, it's not just been by accident, and it's been purposeful, which is. Okay, well, I mean, to some degree, I've kind of embraced it, Morgan. It's because I kind of like that underdog role. I mean, I like the underdog role. I think it's kind of fun, and I like the idea of fighting for something like that, and kind of, sticking it to them in the end, would be like, I kind of feel that way to a certain degree, like I'm going to show them, So that part's kind of been motivating for me. But I want to at the end of the day, I want to do what's right for the state. I really do. I mean, I'm fourth generation Kansan. My grandparents were farmers. My parents were public school teachers in this state. I mean, I have a ton of history here, and I truly love Kansas. I mean, I love this state. I think it's one. I've been all over the country. I've traveled to the East and West Coast. I've been, and I've been to Europe. I've been lots of places, and I still like it here. I mean, this is still my favorite place to be. So I want to see our state do better.
Yeah. And so now we'll move into the last three questions that I'll ask every guest this season. The first is, if the race were to end tomorrow, what would you be most proud of by stepping into the race? Yeah,
well, I think maybe just that. I would be most proud of the fact that I had the cojones just to do it at all. I mean, and I like that my kids get to see that too, because I want them to have that kind of mindset about things they do in life too. I want them to have to not worry about what could happen, but to go out there and just, make some shit happen, so I want them to be inspired by that also, which I know they are, and I think they are. And so, that would be for me at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, if this doesn't happen, I'm going to go, okay, well, I just did what 99.9% of the population won't do, and I gave it a whirl, and I might maybe give it another whirl, who knows, right? So.
Yeah, you've done it. When people hear your name 5 years from now, what do you hope they associate it with?
Well, gosh, I hope they remember me at all, right? I'd be so, because they may not remember. I can't even remember I can't even remember who the governor was 3 or 4 times ago. So anyway, what would they remember me in 5 years? I mean, I would. If I was lucky enough to be the governor, I would love for them to remember me as somebody who had like these really new, bold initiatives and ideas, and somebody that was willing to just like take some chances and press the state on issues that they're not willing to push themselves on, and to extend ourselves as a state and as a community, because that's what we haven't done the last 40 years. We have not extended ourselves as a state. We're just like, we've been managing decline, and that's a terrible place to be in, to manage decline. We can't keep young people in the state. We got an aging population. We're just we're withering on the vine, and you cannot downsize yourself to prosperity. I mean, it's a business. It's an old adage in small business. You can't cut and think you're going to become a really good, big, successful business. And the same is true of the state. We can't cut and think that we're going to have the greatest public school system and the greatest farm system. I mean, you just cannot. We're going to have to push ourselves and press ourselves. So in 5 years, if I could be remembered as somebody who was like really pushing the envelope and making people think about things they hadn't thought about, and maybe making people take some steps and be willing to stretch themselves as a state and as a community, that'd be awesome. Yeah, I'd feel great about that.
And then the last question is, why is voting important to you, and what would you say to somebody that's not planning to vote in August?
Well, you and I touched on this in the early question there. I mean, the primary is critical because we're going to, if we don't have the right person out of the primary, I mean, from a Democratic Party standpoint, if we don't elect the right person, we're dead man walking in the general. And so we're going to have a candidate that is not going to win, and that's not going to inspire anybody. And because I'm not a Republican, I fear greatly the Republican initiatives in this state. I mean, I don't like the idea of church and state, mingling. I like the idea of a separation of church and state. I don't want to see public schools have too much religion in them. I just don't think that's a place for it. And we're going to see that kind of stuff. The Republican Party takes the big chair in Kansas with a supermajority. We're going to see a public school system that's going to get pushed to have Christian kind of doctrine in it, and I don't want to see that. But that's not the place for public schools. The primary is critical to getting the kind of person that we want in the general election, to win the general election.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, super fun. We could talk for a long time, right?
Yeah. Keep going.
If I don't spill my coffee.
Yeah.
All right. So.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Morgan.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode. I really hope that you enjoyed and learned something from this conversation. Politics Not Included is hosted by the Transparent Campaign Initiative. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and if you did enjoy this show and want to see this organization continue to grow, we would really appreciate if you would consider making a donation or follow us on our social media pages. That support helps us grow as well. The links are in the show notes. Thank you.